Hi, I'm John Slattery, and you're very welcome along to the all-new series of Carfile. Over the next 12 weeks, I'll be testing 12 different classes of car, showing you the good bits and of course the bad bits of many of the cars that are on sale in the UK. From SUVs to luxury executives, we'll be rating them for interior and exterior styling, performance, practicality and good old value for money. Plus, each week Brendan Coogan will be showing us an alternative to the 3-car test.
That's right. For those of you who fancy something a little different from our weekly test cars, I'll be getting the lowdown on all that's new in the motoring world from the guys who know, the car dealers themselves.
So, to kick off the new series of Carfile and to celebrate the end of winter, he hopes, this week we've got 3 coupes from the leading manufacturers. In recent years, there's been an explosion in the coupe market as manufacturers catch on to the fact that more and more motorists want that cool cachet associated with coupes, yet without having to fork out the cash for an out-and-out sports car. We were spoiled for choice, but to get a good cross-section of the market, we've gone for the BMW 320i, Vauxhall Astra Turbo and the Hyundai V6 Coupe. On paper, the cars have similar statistics and are all around the 20 grand mark, so this should make for a pretty interesting day. So the first category we're going to take a look at is exterior styling. Let's face it, it's the first thing that grabs your attention when you see a car. So let's take a good look at this Hyundai. Now to be honest, I hated the old version, but this one really does it for me. From the front, it's almost like the last generation Ford Mustang with its slatted air intakes, and I love these channel bonnet lines. It's purposeful, aggressive, and it's a lot beefier than the old version. And around the side of the Hyundai, that aggression continues with these huge cut lines and these chiseled out door panels. And dare I say it, it's reminiscent of the Lexus SC430 and even the Ferrari 456. And although it's a very aggressive style, it's a lot more accomplished than the old version. And it wouldn't look out of place having a more exotic manufacturer's badge on it. And around the back, the finishing touch that any good sports car needs. Purposeful twin tailpipes, which in this, the V6 engine model, makes for a beautiful engine note. So, I have to say, I really like the styling of this car, and it should attract a lot more buyers to the Hyundai brand. What about the other 2 cars? Well, unlike the Hyundai, the Vauxhall Astra Coupe has been around for quite a few years now, and whilst its Burt Tone style lines are clean and sporty, it has to be said that they are also a little dated. However, the main reason why the Astra might not look as good as the Hyundai is because the Astra Coupe is based on a fairly mundane car in the first place, whereas the Hyundai Coupe is a standalone design. It just lacks a degree of attention to detail and certainly isn't that exciting to look at. However, don't let its looks fool you into thinking that this car is bland through and through. As you will see later, it's actually the fastest accelerating coupe of our 3. And so on to the third of our cars, the BMW 320i. Now this car, like the Astra, is also based on an existing model, but the advantage here is that the basic BMW 3 Series is a much more attractive car than a basic Vauxhall Astra. Now you may be surprised to learn that none of the coupe's body panels are actually shared with the 3 Series saloon, which does beg the question, why haven't BMW made a car more sporty than it is? Other than a slightly beefier grille, there isn't much to set the sporting motorist's heart racing. Well, apart from one of the most desirable badges in motoring. On the whole though, as solid and as well styled as the 3 Series Coupe is, we'd have liked something much more sporty. So to look at, if all these cars had their badges removed, we still feel that the Hyundai offers more. Under close scrutiny, the BMW does have more of a quality air about it, but for initial wow factor, it's well done to the Koreans with their coupe. Now it's the interior of the cars. Assuming that the looks and of course the price have tempted you into the showroom, it's time to see how the cars fare behind the wheel. Now the first thing you'll notice about this BMW is how solid it is. The doors are weighty and open, as you can hear, and close with a reassuring clunk. Once inside the coupe, it's traditional BMW. Everything is well laid out and there's a feel that it lasts a lifetime. And the seating position is extremely comfortable. Now you actually sit slightly lower in a coupe than you do in the 3 Series saloon, but that just adds to the sporting driving experience. On the negative side, well, some of the buttons are a bit fiddly, but the overall feel of this car is of quality. So, what about the Astra? Well, the Astra is certainly a comfortable car to be in. It's a good driving position with loads of seat adjustments, and the steering wheel moves both ways to suit a good range of driver builds. But like the exterior, the cabin is far too basic for a car with such performance, and it's basically the same as a base model Astra saloon. The level of kit is also a bit sparse. Yes, you get a CD player and aircon, but no sunroof and no side airbags, which are a strange omission. The Hyundai, on the other hand, is packed with kit, and was again the most surprising interior of the three. The seats are reassuringly supportive and the driving position is good, though there is no reach adjustment on the steering wheel. That said, you do get a sunroof, climate control, leather seats, CD player and a full set of airbags as standard. The quality was also surprisingly good, with few rattles and creaks, and the materials used all seem well up to the job. So on the inside, whilst the BMW is the clear winner when it comes to solidity and build quality, the Hyundai is very impressive and offers the most kit for the money. And the Astra, well, it's not offensive, but you won't be riding home about it. Now, by their very nature, the coupe is not as practical as your regular saloon car because of the two-door sloping roof configuration. But many of them are being used as your main vehicle, so just how practical are our three test cars? Well, this is where the Astra is very impressive. Not alone is it roomy in front, but there's plenty of room in the back and you'll fit two large adults in there, no problem at all. But it's in the boot where the biggest surprise lies. It's actually more spacious than the saloon. Combine that with split-fold seating and the Astra makes for a very practical car. In the Hyundai, space up front is good, but the sharper sloping roof means that taller passengers will feel the pinch in the back seats. It's no good for big hairstyles. When you move around to the boot, you see more examples of Hyundai going the extra mile. Not only is it a good size, but you also get a securing net and several hooks to stop everything moving around, which is a nice touch. The wheel arches aren't too intrusive, and there's also split-fold seating to give you that extra load space should you need it. Like all of our cars, the Beamer has ample room up front for the driver and passenger, but in the rear, whilst access is good and headroom isn't bad, legroom is quite pokey, especially if you have to sit behind a tall driver. Don't be surprised to find your knees digging into the seat in front of you. In the boot of the 3 Series Coupe, you do get less room than the conventional saloon, but there is the standard split-fold seating should you need it. Compared to the other 2 cars though, it is the smallest space, so pack wisely if you're thinking of going off on holidays. So, of our 3, whilst they are all well thought out, we'd rate the Vauxhall highest for practicality. It's spacious in the cabin, has good access for passengers in the rear, and that boot is very impressive indeed. Now, so far, it's the Hyundai that's been providing all the surprises, but that may change later on in the show as we test our 3 coupes out on the road. Now, each week here in Carfile, as well as the 3 test cars, we'll be showing you an alternative car, something that may tempt you away from the mainstream motoring trends. And for this week's coupe with a différence, here's Brendan Coogan.
Thanks, John. Yes, this week's car is certainly a little bit different. Vive la différence, you might say. That's French for vive the difference. Renault's Avantime has taken ordinary coupe design and given it one hell of a shake-up. Now, conventional coupe wisdom states that for maximum effect, the car should be low down for that aggressive stance. Well, it's not exactly hugging the road, is it? It should also have those classic sporting ingredients: front skirt, long sleek bonnet, drag-busting aerodynamics. It's got a set of alloys. The interior, well, that's supposed to feel snug, isn't it? Built around the driver to give that cockpit sports car feel. Again, wide of the mark. There's enough space in here to have a party for my 2-year-old with her 8 friends and still have room for the parents. Still, this is supposed to be the alternative item, isn't it? You might have guessed that the Avantime isn't designed to be a conventional coupe. It is intended to combine 3 core areas, namely the coupe, the MPV and the Grand Tourer. An ambitious project then. It might not have the looks of a coupe, but it certainly has the power of a GT. You get a 3-litre V6 with a 6-speed manual box producing 250 brake horsepower. There's a 2-litre turbo available as well, but that only offers 165 brake horsepower, which would kind of lose the GT ability of the Avantime. It is cheaper though, 24 grand as opposed to 27 for the V6. But although the car is, well, less than petite, shall we politely say, interior space is a little limited. Now those doors might look impressive, but that was as wide as they'll go. I don't think I could get my missus in here, let alone me grandma. Still, once you're in, space is abundant up front. Sadly, the same can't be said for the rear, but you do get 4 big, full leather seats. Sports seats they are too, and it does have a luxurious feel with lots of leather. It's airy too, with lots of glass and 2 big sunroofs. The dash, well, that'll be familiar to any Espace owners. It's got a huge, wide dashboard that goes the entire width of the car. The windscreen is miles away, and I'm afraid you sit too high though. And I've never been a fan of those central digital readouts. The MPV influence is felt again in the clever use of space. There's an abundance of little cubby holes for storing this and that, and the boot is big enough to fit most other conventional coupes in, never mind your weekend bag. Now Renault set themselves an ambitious target with the Avantime, but to a certain degree they've succeeded because it looks like nothing else on the road except perhaps a Vauxhall or a new Megane. But it is distinctly Renault. It offers a high level of equipment and luxurious motoring, but its proportions mean that it's always going to be out-handled by anything in the coupe class. Still, its space and long distance ability mean that it's going to outclass most cars in the Grand Touring stakes. Still, nothing ventured, nothing gained. C'est la vie. Vive la différence. Comme ci, comme ça. Tout à l'orange.
So the Renault Avantime certainly looks the part, but only time will tell whether the British public take to it. Well, that's it for part 1 of Carfile, but make sure you join me after the break when we'll be testing our 3 coupes out on the road. Hi and welcome back to Carfile. This week we're looking at coupes from 3 of the leading manufacturers, BMW, Hyundai and Vauxhall. Now when it comes to the noise a bit, the engine, this is where there's a big difference between our 3 cars. The BMW 320i has a 2.2 litre straight 6 unit. It produces 168 brake horsepower and will get you to 60 in 8.2 seconds. The Hyundai has a 2.7 litre V6 taken from the Santa Fe off-roader. It produces 165 brake horsepower and will get you to 60 in 8.2 seconds, the same as the Beamer. But it's the Astra that packs the biggest punch. It's only got a 2 litre engine, but it's turbocharged and it produces a whopping 187 brake horsepower and will get you to 60 and get this, 7 seconds flat. So on paper it looks like the Astra will be providing all the thrills, but you know what they say, the proof of the pudding is in the driving. And this has the pudding, I can tell you. When they told me that this was powerful and fast off the mark, they weren't kidding. Thanks to the turbo, which comes in quite low down, the acceleration is phenomenal. You get that sinking feeling that I love. You know, the one where you put your foot down in the accelerator and you just sink back into the seat. You know the one I'm talking about. You can feel every bit of that 187 brake horsepower in front, I can tell you. Now, there's a surprising amount of traction. But to be honest with you, I think the traction control is set a smidgen too sensitive for its own good. Now, when you do get to put this car through its paces out on the road, the lower stance and stiffer suspension makes for excellent stability and ride. But it's not too harsh, which is very important. This car really does stick to the tarmac. When you come across a road of sweeping bends like this one, it makes for a lot of fun. You'll find you'll be going home the back roads just for the bends. And when you do get on these bendy back roads, well, you'll also discover that there's an awful lot of steering feedback, so you know exactly what the car is doing and when it's doing it. Now, I know I've been singing the praises so far of this car, and rightly so, but I will tell you, if you are a fan of notchy gearboxes, well, you won't be too mad about the Astra's gearbox. Saying that though, it does the job, and when you've driven the car for a while, you tend to forget about it, and you'll just kind of enjoy the ride like I am. Another thing is that when you get into the car in the morning and it's freezing cold, the gear knob is freezing. It's a minor little thing, but it's something, you know, that's worth mentioning. And really, being honest with you, I don't think I'm old enough to buy driving gloves just yet. finally, how does this car perform out in the motorway? No problems there. It's extremely comfortable. You'll definitely have no problem overtaking, and you'll just enjoy the ride on the open road, especially if you're sitting here behind the wheel and behind that 2-litre turbo engine. Forget about the dated exterior and the naff interior. Out on the road, this car is the business. Next up is the V6 Hyundai Coupe. Now, even though the Hyundai has only slightly less torque than the Astra, you really need to rev it hard to get a sporty response from it. But even under hard revs, the engine does feel smooth, and as you would expect from a V6, you get a good sporty engine note. Despite being a front-wheel drive layout, the car is actually very comfortable and composed of all but the roughest of road surface, and you only really get understeer when you're going hard into a corner, as well as a small degree of body roll. If any of you have driven the old Hyundai Coupe, this is a different league and is generally much more grown up out on the road. But in terms of being an exciting and responsive drive, it's no match for the Astra Coupe. Yes, it's got the V6 engine, but real driving enthusiasts will prefer the greater pace, ride and overall sporty feel of the Vauxhall. So what about the BMW, the self-proclaimed ultimate driving machine? Well, unlike the Astra and the Hyundai, the BMW is rear-wheel drive, so straight away you have a better package for sporting performance. As you would expect, this car is remarkably refined at all speeds, and it really does instill confidence in you to be able to push that little bit harder. The suspension is also quite firm compared to the regular 3 Series saloon, but not too firm that it becomes jarring. As with all of our cars, the Beamer comes with traction control and ABS to help out when your driving gets a little too enthusiastic. Although the BMW has almost identical performance figures to the Hyundai, surprisingly it doesn't seem to have the same urgency of the Korean. The answer, though it's getting out of our budget, is to go for one of the 3-litre versions of the 3 Series, as they provide more oomph that the chassis deserves. On paper, the Astra looked as though it would provide the most thrills, and I have to say it delivered the goods. Though the BMW is a superb car to drive, for a sporting experience the Astra gets our vote. On the Hyundai, again an impressive and perhaps surprisingly composed drive, but it just doesn't quite have the edge of the other two cars. No doubt about it. For the money, the Astra is fantastic value. Over 150 miles an hour, 60 in 7 seconds, all for around 19 grand. You will be hard pushed to beat that in the coupe market. Plus, it's based on the mass-produced platform, which means when it comes to servicing, it won't break the bank. A couple of things to bear in mind. Although the initial price is quite reasonable, the Astra will not hold its value as well as the BMW, and it can be quite expensive to insure. So if you don't think you need the power of the turbo, go for the 2.2-litre version, because that will drop you from Group 15 down to Group 12. Now, the BMW shouldn't have a problem with depreciation. If well looked after and serviced regularly, it should hold around 60% of its value after 3 years. That's something you get from having the BMW badge on the car. At the pumps, it returns around the same as the Astra on the combined consumption figures, 32 to the gallon, and it's the same insurance group of 15. The big crunch comes with the initial price. You can get an Astra for under 19 grand, whereas a BMW will set you back over 23 grand. Now, whilst that's not an unreasonable price for such a quality car, it does make the Astra out to be even better value. Last but not least, it's the Hyundai. And whilst this isn't the last word in sporting performance, you cannot but be impressed with the amount of kit that you get for the money. V6 engine, climate control, sunroof, leather seats, all for 18.5 grand. Plus, it's an insurance group lower than the other two at 14. Now, I know I can hear you, granted, it'll be worth the least after 3 years. But saying that, if you sell it before that, it makes for a cracking buy. On the value front, it really depends what you want to do with the car. If looks, comfort and level of kit are your main criteria, the Hyundai gets our vote. For performance, per pound, the Astra is the clear winner. But overall, for a long-term prospect, you can't beat the BMW, as over time it makes much more financial sense, as it holds its value more than the others. So that's our 5 categories covered. Interior and exterior styling, performance, practicality, and good old value for money. With those in mind, let's take a look at the final scores for our 3 coupes. For exterior styling, we gave the Hyundai the highest marks, as it looks the most exotic and will get the neighbours' curtains twitching more than the other 2 cars. Moving to the interior, and it's the BMW that scores the highest points. It's stylish, it's classy, and it will last longer than a lump of rock. We have to say good effort to Hyundai though for putting the work in with the interior of the coupe. Onto practicality, and this time it's the Astra that scores the most. There's good room front and back, and the boot is enormous. Out on the road, it's a close call, but for sporty, exciting drive, the Astra Turbo gets the highest marks. It's fast, it's responsive, and it really puts a smile on your face. And finally, it's value for money. A tie here with the Astra and the Hyundai. As whilst the Hyundai gives you the most kit, the Astra gives you the most performance. The BMW wins out though, because of its superior desirability, quality and impressive depreciation figures. Total scores then, 34 for the Hyundai, 32 for the Astra and 36 for the BMW. Although the BMW got the most points overall, the level of kit on the Hyundai and the performance of the Astra can't go unnoticed. For around 18 grand, they're very impressive coupes. Well, that's it from Carfile for this week, but make sure you join us next week when myself and Brendan will be driving performance estate cars. I'm John Slattery, and I'll see you then.